Oh, it's so good. So good. I'm super hyped for RWBY again. I've needed to be hyped for RWBY in such a long time for something. And now this, yes. Hey guys, so Rooster Teeth have literally just dropped the trailer for the animated series RWBY Fairy Tales of Remnant, based on this book that we have done a video about in the past. Go check that out. So, let's literally watch it right now. Okay, so first time watching this at all. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
What is your favorite fairy tale?
Oh my god. It's because I've read some of the books that I'm already like, oh my god.
A mysterious past. While we may not have the answers we desire,
danger surrounds us on all sides.
Creatures of Grimm destroyed my entire village.
we do have stories. Stories of horror.
She longed to experience the world outside, but she was his prisoner.
The forest? But we're not supposed to go in there.
Oh my god.
If we stick together, we can overcome anything.
Stories that reveal more than we know. And no matter our past or our future, one thing is certain. It is stories that will endure.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh, there's so many things that now, because, like, I haven't read this back in a while, and now just from rewatching that trailer, I already want to reread these stories again. Oh my god. There's so many things just in that short trailer. Oh my god. Right. I'm going to watch it again, and then I'm going to come back to you.
Many hours later.
So, I've had a detailed look at everything, and because I know this book pretty damn well, I'll tell you what I know and what we're seeing. Okay, so we start with this. Clearly a forest with a girl in it. Now, from what we see later on, I'm almost certain, in fact I'm positive, this is from the story The Grimm Child, which essentially is a possession story, but we'll get into a bit more about that later on when we see more about it. Then we get what is clearly the girl in the tower. I mean, we've literally seen this in RWBY itself. That's clearly Salem, and we see Ozma and Salem's father later on, which is really exciting. We'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, this is clearly the girl in the tower. And here we've now got, which is the story of the Hunter's Children. Very obviously the Hunter's Children, with it being him and his 4 kids. Because I don't think there's any other stories about that. Now, I remember some people in the past wondering whether the Hunter was one of Ozma's incarnations. Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. I mean, just looking at what's drawn on that table, that symbol, and the book we see later on in this, maybe it's Ozma, maybe it's not. But to be honest, I don't think it really matters. It doesn't really matter if it's him or if it's not him. Because it's just a good story about kids working together, essentially. That's basically the summary of that story. Really should put a spoiler in this before I do it. Anyway. Then we've got clearly the Indecisive King. Now, this is a really sort of strange but interesting story. Because essentially, the Indecisive King is a king that, for a start, is very decisive. Very, like, if someone asks her questions, he will give an answer. But his only demand is, if you ask me a question, you have to do exactly what I say in return. Which, fair enough. And then things happen, which we'll get to in a minute. But I will also say that I do think this is an interesting style that's going on in this particular bit, because everything else doesn't seem to be book-like. Like, this looks like the style of the stuff that's in this book, which I find very interesting. So I wonder if that's going to be something to do with how they're going to stylize each episode and whatever, but we'll see, we'll see. Then what have we got next? Yeah, a RWBY anthology series, which I do find a bit weird saying it's calling it an anthology series, considering we've got an anthology book and this isn't the anthology book. Anyway, now this I'm fairly certain is also The Girl in the Tower again, from the stylized. However, I do think this very particular thing here, as we see it here, screams Wizard of Oz to me, which I find kind of like weird that that's like more Wizard of Oz than the one in the actual series was. I don't know if that's just me though, but anyway, that just makes me think of Wizard of Oz, and considering it's Ozma, and yeah, maybe just me. Anyway, then we've got obviously the Indecisive King, and this might be the first time he's putting the crown on. He's very like wary about putting the crown on in public after the first time he wears it. So I don't know if this is meant to be the first time it's depicting here, because it does look like he's in his normal throne, but he does look very prepared as well in this moment. So I'm thinking not. But yeah, okay, we'll get onto that in a bit, I suppose. Right, now this is very, very interesting. I'll just go back a few frames. Okay, now I want you to take a look at the fact that this foot here, this footprint seems very human-like, right? Now if we go a few frames in, it becomes more and more animalistic, which is very, very interesting to me, because I believe this is from the story The Shallow Sea, where essentially when some human travellers step off to this animal paradise, they become animals or faunus. I'm not entirely sure exactly which one of the two it is, but yeah, they become more animal-like as they step off this beach because of this god, which then was shown a god-like figure on a beach. Well, I'm assuming this is where this is going into a bit more speculation, because I'm assuming this is representing the god. Now this is interesting. In this story there's a single god, not two, not brothers, one god. Now I'm thinking that this is representing the god, and I still think it represents the god further on later on, and I'll explain a bit that later. But even though it's from the Shallow Sea, I think this is the god, not just of that story, but the god represented in general. And I'll get a bit more into that when we get further on. But yes, I'm fairly certain this is representing God. And then we've got Ozma here, making or finding one of what will be Salem's letters, which she sent out essentially to say, "Come rescue me." Yeah, that was basically it. Come rescue me. I don't know what else was meant to be written on the letters, to be fair, but who needs to know? It was just basically, come rescue me. So yeah, there he goes off to rescue her. And then we've got the Indecisive God in some sort of hell thing. And I'm guessing this is what he's seeing wearing the crown, which, if I haven't brought this up already, I can't actually remember now, is, in my opinion, the relic of choice. I did go into more to that in that other video I mentioned. Definitely go check that out. But yeah, this seems to be the relic of choice, and if that's what the sort of thing you see wearing the relic of choice, damn, that's pretty horrific. But weirdly in the story, there's never actually a mention of a being like Jinn, where it's like something that comes along with the relic. So that's kind of interesting to me, that there's not actually a being of sorts that comes along with it, but there probably is. But it's maybe just not mentioned in this particular story. However, it might be shown more in the animated version, which will be very interesting when it comes out. Yeah, because he's looking pretty scared, because, yeah, spoilers, I guess. Yeah, the relic of choice, or this particular crown, assuming it is the relic of choice, it shows you the future. Yeah, that's what the relic of choice does. shows you the future and shows you a choice that you have to make in your future.
Creatures of...
And I'm fairly certain this is from the Indecisive King as well. That's probably the character that becomes his wife, I think. I'm a little foggy on that story completely from what her description was of the person that stays with the king, essentially. But yeah, I remember she wasn't in great wealth because...
Grim destroyed my entire village.
Yeah, Grim has destroyed her entire village, literally. So yeah, that's probably who becomes his wife. And then this being Salem sending out her letters to people to come rescue her. And then I assume this is one of the other people that attempted to rescue Salem before Ozma. Because Ozma was not the first. Ozma was just the first one to succeed. Okay, and then... Right, then I believe this is another bit of clip from the Grimm child. So it's the same girl, red eyes, red hair, it seems to be, but this is just like when she's in bed, discovering, yeah, people. I don't know exactly what you'd call it, almost drained of life or something from this Pacific Rim. It's pretty horrific. And like Ozma says in this scene about... let me just go back a sec.
Stories of horror.
Yeah, stories of horror there. So yeah, it's clearly like it is a pretty horrific story, to be fair, for a fairy tale. And then obviously clearly we've got Salem again from Girl in the Tower. And what's interesting is like making it really clear to the audience, oh yeah, this is Salem. It's like, oh no, we're not gonna hide the fact. But yeah. And also that's what the emblem we actually see in the episode of Salem's like family or whatever, which is really interesting because it's extremely similar to Jean's. And I feel like people have theorized about that in the past, about whether Salem's actually like, or is sort of related to Jean. Maybe he's not necessarily a descendant of her, but like maybe an offshoot branch of her family. But that wouldn't make... I don't fucking know anymore. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting that they have a very similar emblem. And here, oh my god, this is Salem's father. We actually, for the first time ever, are seeing Salem's father depicted. And interestingly, he's wearing a crown, which makes you think he was one of the old kings from the old world, which is really interesting because I don't think that's actually brought up in here. If it is, I've just forgotten it. But yeah, that's really interesting. It would make sense why he owns this big castle if he's a king, and Salem being then a princess in the tower, which, yeah, which obviously, other things, real fairy tales there. And then we've got... Okay, then I believe this is another bit from the Grimm child. See, same character, just with a hair up, red eyes, red hair, just not in a 90s stuff. And this is her discovering, which I believe was her brother. Yeah, a bit, as far as I can tell or remember from that scene, I think he's basically possessed by a Grimm at this point. I can't remember what the Grimm's actually called now. Name on screen now. But yeah, he's basically been possessed at that point. And then we've got the grown-up version of the kids, that's the hunter's children, when they reunite again, which will be an epic story. I cannot wait to see this story animated. And yet they're all back together with their all unique semblances. Now, let me just go back a second. Now, this is extremely interesting because we've got this figure again, which I still believe is representing God in this story, but I don't think it's the same story. Now this is where this is really interesting. This book contains two possible origin stories for the Faunus. Now we're getting what I believe is the judgment of the Faunus, which also has a god making the people and animals faunus. Because essentially, he turns the people into half animal, and he turns the animal into half human. So, and I believe that's literally what's happening right there. Right there is when the because the humans or animals are at war with each other, and the god's like, nah, I'm not having any of that. I'm going to stop you because you basically, humans hated the animals because they didn't understand the animals, and the animals hated the humans because the humans didn't understand the animals. And so basically it's just like, hey, if you can't tell each other apart anymore, you won't fight, I guess, and understand each other better. So yeah, so this is, I believe, the scene where they're about to be, the animals about to be turned into faunus, and the humans about to be turned into faunus. Yeah. And now we've got the huntsman of the huntsman's children, or the hunter's children, sorry. This is probably way before anything happens, and this might be the battle he loses. Yeah, spoilers again. Spoilers. But yeah, and then we've got that's clearly the hunter's children protecting that village that they do. And I believe, if I remember rightly, one of them, and I can't remember which one, semblance is essentially the same as Ren's, where it can disguise people's like fears or something. I've vague recollections of what it actually is. It's not super important to the story, but yeah, working together there, you see, to save it, because one of them wasn't powerful enough on their own, but the power of teamwork and friendship or familyship, yeah, cool. And then we get here, and look, that's where it's like the same design as on the table we saw earlier, and I'm fairly certain, because it's Ozpin talking in the background, that this is Ozpin there, because it sort of even looks like him. And yeah, RWBY Fairy Tales, and look at that, it's literally coming out as I record this in 20 days. Oh my god, 20 days. I am so hyped. Yeah, I knew we wasn't getting the main series of RWBY this year, and I actually said to somebody, I think it was Harry, that I was like, man, I really hope we get this year then. And I was just like, oh yes, this is going to be great. Now I've seen a proper trailer and stuff from that I know from the series, it's going to be great. Now, what I have noticed, that if I'm right, and it's showing all the stories I believe it's showing, that's 6 stories, which to me makes perfect sense, because there's 12 stories in the entire thing, and I can imagine either they do all 12 and just that's it in this like one season, or they do 2 seasons, 6 in this one, 6 in the other. I feel like it's not a coincidence that they're showing 6. It could be 5, and I could be mistakening some bits that I believe to be from the Shallow Sea to actually be from the Judgment and the Faunus, but I really doubt it. But I do think they're trying to obviously make people think about the fact how similar these stories are, because they're both seemingly showing different origins of the Faunus, but only one of them can really be right. Well, in this book, it appears only one of them can be right, but maybe there's a clue that we get from the animated series where actually both of them are right. Maybe that would be super interesting if that was the case. Although I do have to say, there's definitely certain stories that we haven't seen shown in the animated series that I'm almost certain are definitely not real. Like, they're definitely not real things that happened. But to be fair, actually, thinking about the ones we've seen, they're the most sort of grounded and more ones that are more likely to be historically accurate in certain aspects of the story. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to find out more about this book, there is another video that I've done about it, and you can quickly watch that. It's not a long video like this one, quite a short one. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to this series. Cannot wait to see it. So if you like this video, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to see more RWBY stuff, because we're always doing RWBY stuff, trust me. And if you're into Comic-Con stuff as well, where we do RWBY cosplays, yeah, there's bound to be more stuff like that as well. But anyway, we'll see you in another video. Bye for now.